So let's start with the question which I like to ask on a very regular basis. Let me ask a question. When did you receive your first salary? When did you receive your first salary? So typically I will have a 23, 24-year-old saying just out of college that I received it when I started working at the age of 22. They might be 24, they might be 25. Typically, all the people who start working start receiving their salary at a young age. But would you like to know when I received my first salary? I got mine when I was 47. So let's say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. A person must begin to get somewhere. Good afternoon. My name is Aruna Katara, and I am the president of the Hope Foundation and Research Center. Hope Foundation has two engineering colleges. The first one in Ratnagiri, called Finolex Academy of Management and Technology, and which is 25 years old this year, and I2IT, the International Institute of Information Technology. At I2IT, we also have PPCRC, that is the Prahlad P. Chhabria Center for Research. I firmly believe it's never too late to start your career. And I can say this with confidence. I can say this with confidence because this is exactly what has happened with me. I would like this to be an interactive session, and I welcome all the viewers and attendees to feel free to pose their questions, which Deepanjana will take up at the end of my session. Let me start with a little bit of my background, just to put everything into context. I'm blessed to be the daughter of Sri Prahlad P. Chhabria, the founder chairman of the Finolex Group and the founder president of Hope Foundation. My father came before partition from Pakistan. He came to Pune because his father had passed away and he was one of the elder siblings sent out to earn some money. There were totally 10 siblings in the family. The first job my father did was at his sister's husband's place in Amritsar, and his first salary was ₹10. He then came to Pune again to another relative to earn some money. And this is when partition happened, 1947, and the rest of the family moved to Pune. But in those 2 years, from 45 to 47, a boy who was used to all the comforts and all the luxuries of the world till his father had passed away, till the age of 13. He writes in his book, I would recommend this book to everyone. So there's no such thing as a self-made man. So this book gives us a story, gives us a clear picture on what he went through. He came to Pune, he swept the floors, he served tea, he got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to fill tea. He did all the menial labor, which he was completely unused to. But for me, by the time I came, I had a very comfortable childhood. I had privileges, I had comforts, but I had two very strict parents. My father and my mother were very strict disciplinarians. They would, in that era, they believed in spare the rod and spoil the child. So I quite comfortably remember my mother giving me a whack for something I may have not done correctly. I was very average in school in terms of academics. I must have been a nightmare for my parents, but thankfully, again, that was a different era, and I don't think parents were as obsessed with marks and getting into a competitive rut. In fact, I must thank my parents for being quite laid back where competition is concerned, and this is something that I followed with my children too. I had certificates, I still have them from school, for yoga, for badminton, for flower arrangements, for English poetry writing, for sketching, drawing, everything possible. But no, academics, no. In fact, I would fail every year in 3 subjects, typically English, Hindi, Marathi. Luckily for me, we were allowed to fail in 3 subjects. I had a dark complexion, I had pimples, I had low self-esteem. All my cousins in class were much better in their report card and were really much more good looking. Why am I sharing all this? It will come to you later. I had a sister who was 17 years younger than me. She was born when I was 15, but at the age of 17, when she was about 2.5, she had ALL, which is leukemia. So at that point of time in the year 1977, Pune really didn't have any facilities to treat cancer, to treat leukemia. For this, my mother and father took her to the US with the hope that she will get a quality life after the treatment. This taught me, being a little mother and having a sister who was terminally ill, taught me compassion, care, empathy. I matured at a very young age to look after the house, to never make any demand of my parents, to never put forth what I want to do. The degree was a commerce degree, and finally, I was enjoying what I studied. And finally, I started doing well because these were the subjects that I enjoyed. There was no more of Marathi, math, physics, chemistry, which used to terrorize me. I still have nightmares about maths. I wanted to do a postgrad, but I was not allowed. Why was I not allowed? Because I had conservative parents. The parents believed that do whatever you want when you go to your husband's house. I did an MA. After my BCom, I did an MA in fine art. And this was literally to kill time. To me, it was important because art was a subject which I enjoyed. And it taught me history of art, Indian history, Western history, and it gave me some kind of grounding knowledge as to what art is about. Keeping in mind those times, that era, I married late at the age of 23 after my sister passed on. The mandate given to me was to be a good wife, to be a good daughter-in-law, and to be a good mother. I think that's the mandate most parents or most mothers give to their daughters. But there was this hunger within me. I was not allowed to do an MBA. I was not allowed to do journalism. These were the 2 things I thought I would have been good at, but I was not. The hunger in me to do constructive was still inside me, was constantly within me, but I did not know what to do. I do hope to say that I was a good daughter-in-law, a good wife, and a good mother. And I was very busy with home and bringing up the children, and my husband turned entrepreneur. This entrepreneur husband, who's actually an MDS, a Master's of Dental Science, who taught me to write my first check and to fill up my first passbook. I had done a BCom with a first class, but till then, I had never written a check. I had never been to a bank. And it was my husband, who was a doctor, who taught me the basic principles of how to live a life, to be a little independent and not totally dependent as I was on my parents. The lab needed to expand. So from Mumbai, we moved to Pune in the year 1994. I must have been about 35 that time. The children were growing older, independent. I was one of those people who have never been to a kitty party. I'm one of those people who could not understand how to spend time just talking with a bunch of people. I have no issues talking. I have no issues hearing. In fact, I prefer hearing because I think hearing makes you a good conversationalist. I'm always ready to go for a talk, but to go and spend time with an endless chatter was really not me. This was the time of Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi. It had just started out that time. I've never watched a single TV serial, any of these Hindi TV serials. There was something about it that never appealed to me. So what do I do? What do I do? And I realized at that point of time, the kids were older. They didn't really need me. So just for the satisfaction of it, from the learning aspect of it, I joined DBM in the year 1995, 2 years evening course with Pune University. And then I did my MMS 1 year, and I got a distinction from the Pune University at the age of almost 40. If you have to ask me what has been my most memorable parts of my life, let me tell you, I could rank this as number one. This was the hunger in me or the passion in me. There was always a need in me to do something beyond just the ordinary life. And I enjoy wearing good clothes. I enjoy wearing good shoes. But being able to use my head, being able to chase a passion, being able to keep the fire in me alive, to study what I wanted to do when I was 20, I finally got a chance to do. What was I going to do with it? No idea. I studied because I enjoyed studying. And I studied and I did well because these were topics or subjects which I understood and they appealed to me. Still hungry, very hungry. I asked my father, can you give me some money? I want a couple of crores. I want to start a school. I want to start a school where the Mali's child or my child, anybody can go to. And he tells me, you wait, there is something big going to happen and you will have a chance to do something, to do some charitable work. This was the year 2000 when my father Prahlad Shabria met Dr. Vijay Bhatkar. And this was the genesis of I2IT in Pune. I had the involvement of being with I2IT from the first drawing board. I've been a managing trustee at the Hope Foundation for very many years, and I had typically the only work to do was to sign 1 million colored forms through the year to submit to Mumbai University, to submit to AICT, to submit to DT. Managing trustee could have an active role, but FAMT being in Ratnagiri and me being in Pune, and still not having found my passion, there was not much that I did with the involvement of FAMT and as a managing trustee. But in Pune, when I2IT started, I think I found my calling. I don't think even my father realized, and there was no way that I thought of it, that this would be my calling in life. I'm sure we both thought that I will have something to do in terms of passing my time or doing some social activity. I would have guessed, or I had thought at that point of time, maybe I will look after the landscaping or the cafeteria or the hostels or some such thing. But no, I2IT and we fell in love with each other and I got aggressive. My first 7 years of work from the year 2000 was as an intern. I was not paid a rupee. I did not realize that I would get into all the different aspects of putting up an engineering college, which we had hoped would be a university. My husband paid my car and petrol bill. My husband paid my mobile bill. And I was not paid by the institution because I was treated as an intern. It is after 7 years when I got my first salary, I think this is probably the second most or as good as the first achievement of my life that made me realize, yes, I am worthy of something. I am capable of something. And all those nightmares and bad dreams of low self-esteem, of not doing well in my studies, of not being a capable, accomplished person, completely changed me. The level of confidence of being at work every single day. I knew the time to go in, but I would not know the time to come home. There were days my husband would call me, Madam, what time do you plan to come? So over the last 20 years, what all have I learned? I've learned aspects of management, which the business school students would know about, of OB, of HR, finance, purchases. I went into admissions, admission strategies, marketing, branding. International travels happened because we had we had I'm searching for the word now. We had collaborations with universities in the US. We had collaboration with Moscow State University, where our students would go for computational fluid dynamics. We had auto engineering with Lawrence Tech Detroit. We had different MBA schools. We grew this way. I2IT grew this way. We had students coming in from France, South Korea, China, the other Far Eastern countries, some African countries, coming to Pune for the master's program that I2IT had set up. Here I found my passion. I loved it. This was like a hunt. This was like a chase. This was like how they talk about a tiger getting up in the morning in the savannas and running for the chase. For me, it felt the same way. I faced many fears. I started working at the age of 40, actually working. So I had many fears. I did not know really what it meant to be a professional. So when I saw people around me, when I observed people around me, my colleagues, my team, my faculty, my staff, I learned a lot. And I learned to face my fears and make my decisions. So how do I make my decision? I don't know much. I had no background. So it was very simple. To me, it's a lesson which my father taught. Ask people what you don't know. He gave me his own example. When he started his company and he needed to learn to make a balance sheet, he learned from his CA. So simple thing, you need to ask the experts. And when you need to make a decision, trust your instincts, trust your intuition. It is your intuition based on correct knowledge, scientific knowledge and background, that your intuitions come to the front. I had to be tech savvy. For example, the recent trend of webinars. I was clueless about webinars and technology till very recently. I learned only because I needed to be agile and change and be flexible to the new environment. I must say, as a team, I have an excellent team. As soon as COVID was announced and the lockdown was announced, we took a week from a Monday to Friday to put all our lectures and gear up to be online. So from the following week, from a week later of the college shutting down, we went online and we had 4 lectures online every day. And we have been very agile and very quick to adapt to this new situation. So let's go back to why the passion or the fire in the belly. It's very simple. If you have this inside you all the time that you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to know, you want to share, you want to help, to contribute, that is what keeps the fire alive. I must share, there's something important that I started last year, and I really look forward to accomplishing it, where I can call this my third achievement. At the age of 60, I enrolled for a PhD, and I look forward to actually working and going somewhere with it. There is one thing I realized over the years. It's, it's fine to have a passion. It's good to have a career. You must know what you're doing. You must know what you're tackling. You must know what you're doing, short, medium, long-term goals. But there is something called work-life balance. I started at an old age, old as in 40, to start working, actually working. So at that point of time, at 40, when most people, most women are busy looking after their home and the requirements and needs of their husband or children or the family, I realized that I started something at that point in life, and somewhere in the middle of my life, I found that the work-life balance was something I kept juggling. I can say in the last few years, it has been better, but the first 15 years, from age 40 to age 55, I was wholeheartedly only into working. And that fire, that passion kept me going. To me, work, to me, I square IT, FAMT did not mean a work or an obligation or a commitment. It was something that I lived for and I was passionate about. Some point of time, I realized that I need to work hard, but I need to play harder. So typically students who on their first day orientation of college have heard me say this: Monday to Friday, work hard. Saturday, Sunday, party hard. And I remember my faculty and my seniors looking at me aghast. What is she telling the students? Party hard. Okay. My definition of party does not mean drinking and dancing. If that works for you, well, it works for you. What worked for me when I say party hard is read, learn to play an instrument, travel, trek, go to the Bhaji Samji market and see how people live. New experiences. Develop a hobby that does not involve a screen all the time. Gardening, sports, art, even gymming. In fact, if I have lost out on anything in all these years, is about not looking after my health in the way I should have in this time and date, whether it's to walk or to gym, but that is very important. I realize for me, for my passion to be alive and to have the inner strength to continue with the same force and spirit, I need to sit quietly and meditate a minimum of 10 minutes to 25, 30 minutes. This is the last thing I do at night. And I even chant affirmatives. How do affirmatives help? I'll give you one simple example. For the longest of time, I would blame my parents, my father and mother, for not allowing me to do the things that I wanted to do. And I realized that I have this inner anger with them much long after my mother had gone. And I realized that I am allowing the past to overshadow what I have in my hand now and where I can go with the future. I started saying affirmations with the line saying, my parents did what they did. They did what they thought was right at that point of time. For me, that is over. I will build my own future. I will build my own tomorrow. So few lines of affirmation, which repeated every day, actually send out a message to the universe. So we've heard this line from, say, a Shah Rukh Khan in the movie, "Itni सिज्जत से मैंने तुमको पाने की कोशिश की है कि हर जरा मुझे तुम्हें मिलने की साजिश की है. अगर किसी चीज को दिल से चाहो तो पूरी कयामत तक तुम्हें मिलने की कोशिश में लग जाती है. Something to that type. So what I'm trying to say is seek with determination, seek with a focus, seek with a passion, and you will find it. Make time for family. I know for convenience sake, all of us have WhatsApp family groups, and it's good to keep everybody in communication and pass on messages about who's coming for lunch or what's happening and where do we need to go, social engagement. But there is a life beyond WhatsApp communication. And it is in the last 3 months in the lockdown period, I realized the value of being able to face-to-face interact, know the emotions, know the thoughts of my family because we are with each other. What would I say for people who will ask, how do I start now? Where do I start now? We have to first identify what is your passion. You have to first think of what would you like to do for the rest of your life. If you have the privilege of choosing and not necessarily doing something in terms of bringing bread on the table, choose well. Go deeper. Focus on a cause. Many of us are doing too many things at the same time. I would suggest, if you have the bandwidth, yes, why not? But I would recommend, is to go deep and don't blow with the wind with helping one NGO and helping another cause. Focus on something that is very dear to you. Contribute to society and spend time with the not so privileged. Most of us here who are sitting right now in front of a tablet, iPad, or in an AC room, I'm guessing, with connectivity, so that means we have Wi-Fi bandwidth, etc. What does that mean? All of us here on this platform today, what does it mean? It simply means that we are privileged. And most of our country, we are living in India, but most of our country lives in Bharat. And Bharat does not have the same opportunities such as we in India. Isn't it important that we try to do something for Bharat? Isn't it important that we try to do something for people within our city, within our township, within our reach? I would always think that the two most important things that our country needs is health and education. I firmly believe in that. And that was the genesis on which Hope Foundation was made, to help with health and education. But in the last few months, and looking at the migrants and looking at the pictures and the videos for what is happening around the country, I've realized the biggest challenge of our country is poverty. And when we say poverty, we mean absolute poverty. So what can we do? Each one of us can do. We can give, and giving is not necessarily always about money. Giving can be money, which can be as low as 100 rupees to whatever your pocket can give, to thousands, to lakhs. Do what makes you comfortable within your life. But remember, we really don't need that fifth handbag or the third shoe or a dinner at the mall or just some mindless shopping. That money can be put to use by helping any single soul. Take, for example, the maid at home. She has a daughter. Odds are, without education, at the end of the day, she will end up being a maid in somebody else's home in the future. Can we ensure that we will help with that girl's education? And can you imagine that if each one of us has this fire in our belly, that we will spread the spark, share the light, this spark can go a long way to bringing down absolute poverty in our country. In the last 10 years or so, 15 years, India has grown. India has grown in many ways, but there are still a lot more people to be looked after. Learn to give back, not just money. Giving can be giving ourselves, our time, our efforts, our focus. I relate to this completely, and I believe that these expectations drive me in many ways. Where the question of giving is concerned, my father Prahlad Chhabria and my mother Moini Chhabria, when I look back in time, when CSR was not even a word that was coined, I remember them giving. My mother would never go to a party. I guess that's where I learned from her regarding kitty parties and socializing. But she would always be at the bedside of anyone who was sick, who was in hospital, who needed help, who was financially in a trouble spot. Or even when somebody was getting married, my father would get so excited to make a small contribution to any girl who is getting married. Let me clear that. That is what they believed in. So over the years, this aspect of giving, of sharing, share your time, lend your ear, listen. People are wanting a ear, just somebody to talk to. I've realized in the last 20 years, and with the connects that I have with my alumni, through social media, it's easier and easier. These connects have made me realize that this is the true value of life. To be able to interact with somebody who has been with you 15 years back, who looks at you with affection and respect. The feeling of that respect, and to think that, wow, did I really affect this person 15 years back who wants to now repay me with love, affection, respect, and is in touch with me, whether Shraddha is in Stockholm or whether Charanjot is in Tokyo. There are so many of my students within India, outside India, and when I watch them grow, into very accomplished human beings, not just in the career phase of having a BMW and the finer things in life, but into the person they have become. I have Rahul Prakash, who is working in the NGO section. There are so many students. I have Hemang Dabade in Pune, who had a restaurant and other business. Restaurant obviously wasn't running with the COVID. He came up with the idea of collecting funds every day. So whatever money he collected today, he would go feed somebody with khichdi, achar, or with a parat. So there are many, many ways you reach out, you share, you give. We've instituted many awards. We've had many organizations, we've institutions. There is Apangshala. I have my students who volunteer on weekends, who go and teach at the Apangshala. They teach IT skills, they teach conversational English. We contribute to schools who have children with AIDS. We ask them to come over for a lunch and a performance on World AIDS Day. Small things to bigger things. We have constituted a Prahlad P. Chhabria Award in association with WIE Affinity Group, IEEE Pune section. This is to encourage women. Prahlad Chhabria believed in women's empowerment. We would like to empower women into research, innovation, and change the socio-economic leadership. They're in two categories, the awards of 1.25 lakhs each, the final year students for science, engineering, and technology, or for a best woman professional, 3 to 5 years work X. We are forever giving scholarships. We are forever helping. Like I say, it has to come from within. The passion has to come from within, that yes, this is something that I believe in. This is something that I know can make a difference. And let me say, make a difference, believe in giving back. Am I thinking that the receiver is at the lower end and I'm at the higher end or the upper hand? Actually, no. I find bigger joy in giving than receiving. So when I'm doing any of these things, it is me first who is most satisfied, who is at peace, who is grateful. I feel gratitude and being grateful is one of the most powerful emotions. Being grateful helps you remember that there is so much that we have that we can share. And within that framework, if destiny allows us, that is where we need to keep our passion alive. I expect more. I expect more and more from myself. In the past few months, being at home and not being at work or interacting with people or meeting people has been rather difficult. I'm sure this must be for all of us. So besides not being able to go for a movie or go or travel is one thing that I love. Travel is one thing that I would not like to give up on. It makes me learn. I really love traveling within India and outside India. And to me, the most important part of travel, I try to get myself invited into some local person's house. For example, when we went to Kashmir. So the Srinagar Dachigam forest officer, he invited us home for tea. I love to go and see how people live, how they think, what goes on in their head, what makes them tick, what is their passion. Because when I see passion around me, that is when I feel charged up. When I see a communication happening of passionate people, I'm very excited to have attend a lecture by my coach. Samir Dua is my coach, and he has made a huge difference to my thinking, to my life in the last few years. Samir Dua is my coach as in officially, but I have other people who I look up to. I have Narendra Jyodani, I have Ganesh Natarajan. I've seen Meher Padamji, I've seen Rati Forbes, I've seen Anu Auntie, Anu Aga. She's one of the ladies, the person who I really look up to. Prakash Iyer, there are so many, Rajshekharan Pillai, there's so many people who are here today. There are people who are no more. My professor from SEM HRD, and who later made Sadhana, Professor Pillai, Dr. Abdul Kalam. We are no short, JRD Tata, we are no short of inspiration. We are no short of finding people with a passion around us, and just learning a single tip from each one keeps my passion alive. So let me go back to never resign to the fact that you cannot do what you like, what you want, what you choose, because of your upbringing, because of your circumstances. Yes, we can take charge of our life. We can have a passion, and we can choose to live the way we want. I end with a small note, with a small poem by Allama Iqbal. I love this. And just think about it after we close. खुदी को कर इतना बुलंद, खुदी को कर इतना बुलंद कि हर तकदीर से पहले, खुदी को कर इतना बुलंद कि हर तकदीर से पहले, खुदा खुदा बंदे से ये पूछे, बता तेरी रजा क्या है. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your enriching session. We have some offline questions as well as one posted by Professor Priya. I will just like to take her question first, ma'am. Okay. I'm reading out the question. How do you motivate the younger generation to move away from materialism in a world that does not live beyond today?
Priya, up till 3 months back, I used to find this a challenging question. I'll tell you why. All of us need to go through this phase of life when we are young, when we want to have fun, when we want to hang around with friends, go for movies. Each part of life, each phase of life we want to enjoy. So I cannot say I should not ask a 10-year-old to not play cricket. I cannot say a 20-year-old not to go to Zara. I cannot ask a 30-year-old not to look at the newest gadget or what's happening, the science behind it, or a 40-year-old to think of how to pay the EMI for the next card. It's not possible. This comes to you only when you get done and satisfied with whatever you have wanted.
We have Professor Priya Poddar who asked the next question. Okay. What should be our approach towards the availability and the choice in our life?
Going back to that one word I keep using, passion. Passion, in other words, means fire in the belly, or how to awaken the fire in the belly. So you first need to identify what are you passionate about. Based on that, the world is your oyster.
Thank you, ma'am. Shall I go to the next question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we have Professor Vaidehi Banerjee. She asked a very interesting question. If you wish to be remembered long after, what would be the 3 things you want you to be associated with?
3 things when I'm gone long after. Mm-hmm. One would be passionate. So, for example, my daughter-in-law, she's an ophthalmologist, but she's a travel blogger. She's right now actively collecting money and personally goes and makes bags, food bags, and goes to different slums and distributes the bags. I have my daughter who's actually an artist and loves baking. So passion can be anything. Passion can be mountain climbing. Passion can be windsurfing. Passion can be learning to play the piano. Passion can be anything. So the first thing I would like to be remembered as this passionate person. I would also give a high level of importance to an empathetic person. To be available, that I was available to listen. And to me, the whole thing about the team spirit and be empathetic to my team is very critical. And the third thing is ethic. These are the 3 things I hope I will be remembered for.
Thank you, ma'am. We have another question which is very apt for today's, this generation and the generation before and next. We are all, kind of, within our struggles. We are very much involved in our day-to-day struggles. So this question is posted by Rajni Sudesh madam, and she says, how do we motivate ourselves to contribute despite our own regular struggles that we have in life?
It's true, all of us have struggles, each one of us. The only difference is some of us have figured out how to cope with it, and some of us are still trying to find our way in how to cope with it. I have seen, listening to a lot of wise people, I'm not saying highly educated, I'm not saying highly educated in letters, but a lot of wise people, listen to them. These self-help talks. Today's day and age with YouTube, with being able to actually face-to-face listening and hearing what these senior people have to say, they actually motivate you into bringing yourself out of your downtimes. So it's almost like having a guru, but not one guru. There are so many things to learn from so many people. Try that out.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll go to, we have some offline questions also. I'll just ask that. What were some of the big challenges? You must have faced a lot of challenges, maybe two or three key challenges you can discuss. And who were the sources of inspiration, or from where did you get the inspiration to go ahead from those challenges?
My first challenge was actually when I was very small.
I remember I mentioned my sister when I was 15, and when I was 17, she had cancer. It was a hard time. It was a hard time. At that point of time, when your friends are actually going to Vaishali to have a coffee or going planning a movie or a picnic, and I was involved in looking after her. As an older sister, I realized that at that point of time, because of her illness, and B, because I had very strict parents, I practically had no youth. And I started having fun. To me, having fun is a very important aspect in life. So when my kids were growing up, I was on the other end of the pendulum. And when I realized what I missed out on my childhood, I would not let that happen to my children. I was very open and free with them. Is that the question you asked?
Yeah, I think it's something, the context and perspective is, that this is what we wanted. Another thing, another offline very interesting question we have is that, ma'am, you were a late bloomer in terms of
Right.
achieving things. And
Totally.
so, yeah, you must have faced a lot of fears you were discussing about. What kind of suggestions you would like to give to the women? Not all are financially privileged. If they want to start late, so how they can go about in terms of getting the support and assistance psychologically?
So whether you start late or whether you start early, first of all, believe in yourself. And this is why did I share my childhood and the kind of restrictions that I was up to. I shared it because I want everybody to see that if one A person can do it, anybody else can do it. I had physical privileges. I did not have mental privileges as being a good academician or doing well in my work and my studies, so that would translate into having a good career and good income. So what I would like women to remember, I've seen very regularly, women are women's worst motivators. We mouth the right words, women's empowerment. We mouth the right words, equal opportunities. We say gender bias. We say things like we want our daughter to have same opportunities. Are we actually doing it? So on one hand, we say that you want your daughter to work as much as your son. We do that maybe for our daughter, but do we do it for our daughter-in-law? I don't think women are friends of women. So first realize that only if we can truly support each other without pulling the carpet away every time. So keep that in mind. We need to make a world that is women-centric, for women, by women, instead of against each other.
Thank you, ma'am. We have another question. Can you share some insights related to success in today's scenario? Of course, success has different definitions, but from your perspective.
Success can be, there are many yardsticks, entirely depending on your age also. So when you're 15 or 16, your 10th standard results is your biggest success. Getting into the college of your choice, an IIT or to some good prestigious university, that is success. To doing well and getting a good placement, that is success. Side by side, if you manage to get a certificate for a Trinity exam, piano college certificates, that is success. So same time when you're doing your 10th standard, you're doing your Trinity exam, that is success. Or if you were able to be into an inter-school football, cricket, that is success. So success really means different things at different points of time in life.
True. Thank you, ma'am, for the reply. We have the last question now. As a entrepreneur, if a normal middle class woman wants to try something out, what would be your suggestions in terms of going ahead?
I'm sure there's a lot we can do. When you think of yourself as an entrepreneur and you're starting out, don't worry about I need to do things in lakhs. Think in smaller numbers. Small things. I have seen ladies who are completely uneducated, but this one lady I know has a band of 20 ladies working with her, housewives, who roll out theplas. And they take orders from different sweet marts or grocery stores around the city. Or they do theplas for people who are traveling. So my favorite gift for anybody who's traveling back abroad is a packet of theplas, 100 theplas. And there are people who remember it, that I got it. So simple things like that, whether you can make a pickle, whether you can join a little couple, whether you start working somewhere first, learn the ropes, gain the confidence, and then start doing something on your own. Don't worry about thinking it has to be a big scale, but importantly, write down everything. It has to make sense on paper. The finances have to make sense on paper. Don't go just by, I think I can do this. It has to make sense on paper.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We have some other questions coming, but they can always, connect with you in the link and your
Sure.
email ID and get back to that. Now we are at the end of the session. I, on behalf of the management, staff, and participants, would like to sincerely thank Mrs. Aruna for her enlightening session that can enable us to strive hard, encounter new experiences, and never let that fire die out. Thank you so much, ma'am. We now conclude the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.